All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the May EQIP meeting. It hopefully will not take the full amount of time we allocated. We can get through everything efficiently. And we're going to start with a quick update on physician alignment. So essentially, the HSCRC, as it begins to think about what the new model is going to look like, created a handful of work groups that were supposed to get reports back over to the commission for consideration as they kind of work out their roadmap. And there was a physician engagement alignment work group that dealt with a lot of the issues that we deal with here. The report is, for all intents and purposes, done. The reason it's a draft recommendation is I think we're still cleaning up some typos and wordsmithing, but essentially we are where we are on that. There, you will notice in the draft recommendation, there is information about proposed changes to improve EQIP. There's information about proposed changes to MDPCP. And then there's another section which really deals with new ideas and new models where we can all work together to align physicians to the total cost of care agreement. So I just would suggest that you take a few minutes and you look at it. And while the work group is kind of done having its meetings, obviously things can change when it gets over to the commission. So I really would suggest it's worth taking a few seconds to look at it. One of the other things that has occurred, and I wanted to point out to everybody, MDPCP has opened up for open enrollment. CMMI has opened the portal and you can sign up. The way the current total cost of care agreement is written, this is the last time to sign up to be a part of MDPCP. Now, obviously, one of the things that the Physician Alignment Committee is hoping to do is to extend that. But if you know practices that haven't taken advantage of it, now is the time to do it. And more good news, on top of the MDPCP opening up and having until early July to sign up for that, the MHCC has also expanded opportunities to get into the transformation grant. And Melanie, I don't know if you want to talk real quick and give a quick update on that.
Yeah, thank you, Gene. So most of you know me, I'm Melanie Cavalier. I'm the Chief of Innovative Care Delivery at the Maryland Healthcare Commission. So as Gene mentioned, we have a practice transformation grant that's been underway for a couple of years. We have our first round that's getting ready to graduate in June. We have about 27 practices. We've gotten great feedback from the practices in the program. We do have a round 2 that we are leaving open for enrollment if people would like to enroll in that. And again, you know, we've gotten great feedback. We feel that it's very beneficial. Anyone who is not in MDPCP is eligible. So any kind of specialty, right now we have about a mix of 50% PCP, 50% specialists, and it really does range. We have optometrists, dietitians, we have all kinds of clinicians in there. So if anyone's interested, please reach out to Jean or myself. Happy to assist you. Thank you, Jean.
Thanks, Melanie. Really appreciate it. And again, we'll talk, I think, a little bit about open enrollment and process a little later with Jessica and Will. Again, if you have practices that are not in MDPCP or not in EQIP, this is a really nice way to kind of get help. The other thing I'd say is that MedChi has people who will help anybody sign up for either program. We don't care what CTO you're going into, or if you're not going to go into a CTO, we don't care what EQIP entity you're going into. We really want to encourage physician engagement in this. So I did want to give Will Daniel or Will Henderson an opportunity to see if they want to add anything on a physician engagement before I turn it over to Jessica. Does one of the Wills want to say anything else about the physician engagement work group or the process that was used for that?
No, I don't have anything to add. I think you covered it very nicely.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I'm going to quit while I'm ahead and I'm going to turn it over to Jessica.
Thanks, Jean. Okay, so the bulk of our time today is we're going to review sort of the final episodes that we're adding for PY3, as well as cover, as Jean mentioned, sort of the timeline and steps that are needed during our sort of open enrollment period for next calendar year. So yep, that's what we plan to do today. So hopefully this isn't new, but there's been kind of conversations about where we have been as far as developing new episodes or non-Prometheus episodes. And where we've landed is we will be adding a musculoskeletal as well as a chronic kidney disease Little asterisk, we're basically really close to finalizing the specs on that, and I'll share in general the structure there, but there may be some small tweaks at what's shared today and compared to like what the actual final is, but essentially this is what it's going to transpire when these episodes are added. Additionally, we have added or will be adding 5 Prometheus episodes, which include acute CHF, COPD, deep vein thrombosis, pneumonia, and sepsis. And I also will be spending some time reviewing just in general the setup, and then these slides have the trigger codes available for you to review, after this meeting. So let's dive into musculoskeletal, which, as mentioned, is a non-Prometheus episode. So we sort of are creating this model for ourselves. This model is initially triggered on a physical therapy evaluation. So
Let's go.
3 specific CPT codes, and its attribution is to that therapist. The episode will last 6 months or 180 days. And obviously the attribution or the provider assigned to that will be responsible for the relevant costs associated during that time. However, there is a fair amount of unrelated costs that will be excluded. I think one important note, just to ensure that the right beneficiaries are being incorporated into this model, we are excluding any beneficiaries that have or that had a musculoskeletal surgery within 6 months prior to the trigger. So of course they would meet that trigger criteria, but if they had that surgery, they would not fall into this this episode. So that's essentially how it is. So kind of very much mirroring some of our other episodes with a 0-day look back and a 6-month look forward period. Just for your information, these are the CPT codes that we talked about, as well as the specific musculoskeletal diagnosis. What these unrelevant costs I just mentioned that we are excluding are diagnoses associated with some of these at the bottom. I'm specifically, pointing out like some trauma and fractures, those would be excluded. We mentioned the prior orthopedic surgery, but other ones again are sort of similar to what we've seen in other episodes. Some cancers, high cost drugs, ESRD, things like that. Again, you can kind of see here. Once the plague book is published, we will have a full list of those specific codes, but those are the general categorizations for this. So I will pause here, and Dr. Grunner, who we want to thank for his leadership and all of his effort in creating this episode, I'll give him a chance to talk about anything that I missed or just in general about this, because we're very excited to add it, and again, appreciate all the time and effort he's spent in creating it.
No, I appreciate Jessica and Jean and the whole team. I mean, you guys have been amazing helping there. I've been working on MSK value-based care models for the better part of 15 years. And I really think this is a next generational value-based care model, which really looks at the early on of the episode and how we can holistically manage the episode across the entire continuum. So we're really excited about this model, and we think it's going to be more inclusive, including a lot of other providers, and really look forward to participating. Happy to answer any questions that anyone on the team has about this model.
And I think, Dr. Renner, just highlighting what you said, this does give a large opportunity to add maybe providers or clinicians that were not previously enrolled or eligible for other episodes. So we think that's a great opportunity when we talk about growth of the program in its entirety. So thank you, guys. Okay. So our next non-Prometheus episode that we're adding is a chronic kidney disease episode. So this one is slightly different in structure than we've sort of seen in our prior episodes. So we do have a traditional trigger with a diagnosis and claim. So the diagnosis is a CKD 4 through 6, any of those, on a palliative care claim. However, the length of this episode is dependent on when that initial trigger is. It runs either through the end of the performance year or upon patient expiration. So you can have a little bit of some variability within the length of the episodes based off of that initial trigger. So essentially, kind of thinking about that, we are using a panel-based approach when evaluating this or when holding people to a target price. And to do this, we obviously use this triggering logic. during the baseline period. And during that time, we calculate an average per beneficiary per month cost for those. And then essentially that becomes your target price. So an entity would need to beat that or equal the average of that per beneficiary per month updated in today's dollars. And throughout the performance year, beneficiaries would be similarly attributed to your providers, and we'd compare that average to the target per beneficiary per month. So essentially, this helps reduce that variability within, when someone gets triggered or diagnosed throughout a calendar year, but it also hopefully incentivizes or allows entities to earn savings by extending the proportion of attributed beneficiary months spent in sort of these lower cost, well-managed status. So this is, like I said, relatively new as far as an approach, maybe not new if you're familiar with some of our other CRP programs, but for EQIP, this is a different type of methodology. And just for an FYI, here are the palliative care codes and chronic kidney disease diagnosis that would trigger this. So I wanted to pause here. I'm not sure if we have any of our DaVita folks on the line if they want to comment, but again, want to just to highlight and thank them for their partnership in creating this, but of course also leave opportunity to discuss this episode. Okay.
Well, I just wanted to thank Dr. Weinstein and the DaVita folks were very, very helpful as we work through this. And I did want to say that Jessica and I are planning on doing education during the summer on the new episodes, and we're also willing to do it on any of the old episodes. So if you have a group of physicians or a practice, or you want us to do that, we really want to make sure people understand the opportunity and what it is. So please reach out to us, and we're happy to schedule targeted, specially based education.
Thanks, Jean. Okay, so then we hop into our Prometheus episodes. So these hopefully are somewhat familiar for you all, but at least in structure. So the acute CHF pulmonary edema episode. So this falls into our complication sort of type, which essentially means that it needs to trigger on a diagnosis code on an inpatient claim. So it's a hospitalization, and the window is 30 days after that inpatient stay. So pretty straightforward there. And again, obviously I'm not going to go into detail, but we have included the trigger codes associated for each of these episodes. A COPD is a chronic condition type of episode. So what this looks at is there is a 30-day look back period from the onset of this trigger. It can be triggered in either an inpatient or an outpatient setting. And then it continues through the end of the study period. We also have some other logic. If it is triggered in an outpatient setting, there is basically what's considered a confirmation trigger or confirmation claim to ensure that, again, the beneficiary in that episode makes sense to incorporate into this. Again, the logic and all of that detail is in our episode playbook, but just to summarize here. Deep vein thrombosis is another complication episode, so follows that similar methodology, triggered on an inpatient service with a principal diagnosis claim of those that are listed, and follows the patient for 30 days after that inpatient hospitalization. So this one has much longer ones. And then pneumonia is an acute episode. So this one is a sort of more straightforward X number of days look back, X number of days look forward. So 14 days as a look back period from their initial trigger, and 30 days as a look forward period after that trigger service. And again, this is something that can be triggered either in an inpatient or outpatient type of setting for this one. And the diagnoses or trigger codes here. And then our last one is our third complication episode. So this is sepsis. Inpatient hospitalization following that patient for 30 days. So pretty straightforward. I think that's all of those. And then here is a list of obviously the episodes that have been available for PY2 that are continuing to roll over. So when we're looking at this, we're going to have a total of 52 unique episodes available for participation when rolling into PY2, which is quite great. we started out with 15 in the first performance year. So it's been really nice that we've been able to sort of rapidly grow this. And again, we always like to caveat, we know we have some specialty names there, but by no means is it a qualifier that you must be a specialist in that area to be on some of, or to participate in these episodes, since we know some of them really can be assigned to other type of specialists. So we might tweak some of that just to not lead people astray. But the full episode playbook is available for all of our existing PY2 episodes and is on our website. And we, of course, will update that with these final codes that I've sort of shared here, as well as the in detail, like complication codes, relevant costs, all the great detail that we put into that. So that will be available very shortly as well. Any questions about episodes for next performance year? Okay, so we are rapidly approaching on the open enrollment period. So as a reminder, sort of where we are right now, this May-June period, we like to highlight as the opportunity for those that are not currently onboarded with CRISP to use this opportunity in time to currently onboard with us. And I can review that process, because come July, that's when open enrollment for next performance year opens. So it's only the months of July and August, a relatively shorter time frame. And this is really that window where you can add new MPIs, you can create new entities based off of some of the available episodes. You, of course, can delete any MPIs that may have left your organization, but all of that has to be done within that 2-month window, because the rest of the calendar year is really spent in this vetting and contracting phase, which, you know, due to some of the turnaround time and all of those, we do need quite that lead time. So a little bit about CRISP onboarding. So for those that are new or may not, you know, be enrolled yet, all of the enrollment is done within a CRS suite called the EQIP Entity Portal. And in order for someone to gain access to that, they have to have a participation agreement with CRISP, which includes like some other qualifiers like updating or ensuring that there's proper language within their notice of privacy practice documents. So if you are an entity that, or sorry, if you're an organization that maybe has 2 entities, we only need 1 PA because you're the same organization. So hopefully this isn't a huge lift, but that process can be started today. So again, if you know you guys want to enroll starting July and you're not already onboarded with CRISP, please reach out to that EQIP inbox and we'll get you that process started very quickly and today. So those organizations that are already with CRS and are just looking to participate in this program, their lead care partner can basically contact that organization's main POC or point of contact, and they can give them the right credentials, but also we can help you with that. So if you don't know who that is, or you're just like, oh, hey, I want help accessing that, just email the inbox, we'll get you set up. It's a relatively quick process, but you don't need that additional paperwork as if you were brand new to the CRISP onboarding world. And then big dates to kind of put in their calendar, and we'll try to push a lot of communication when the time comes. But again, due to the holiday, the actual date that the portal will be open will be Friday, July 7th, and it will close on Friday, September 1st. So about an 8-week time frame to do everything within that. So the process for enrollment, as I mentioned, new entities that need to be created, this process has to be initiated by a lead care provider, so your lead physician. An administrative proxy can be granted additional access during that step and complete the enrollment, but that very initial first step has to be a provider to initiate that. You guys can do that by, of course, emailing the EQIP inbox. For new entities, your existing approved administrative proxies already will have the provision and access that they need to go in and edit any of the enrollment for their existing entities. Just as a note, by default, if you guys have no changes and there is no notification of canceling enrollment, you will roll over. So you'll continue to participate in PY3 in whatever episodes you have already selected. We anticipate that probably being very small because I'm sure there'd be at least some tweaks in MPI list, but did want to ensure that people are aware of that. So kind of 2 separate different processes for this. So I want to highlight, what does that actually mean? What does it look like when I'm signing into stuff? So we're just going to go over some quick screenshots of the CRS and EQIP entity portal. So to access or to log into CRS, you're using this reports at crisphealth.org. You all should already have your credentials at this point, but you're using your email, two-factor authentication, and you'll get signed in. Do you want to highlight that the EQIP entity portal lives under this Medicare population tab? So when you first log in, you'll want to click that and then click your EQIP entity portal, which will navigate you to the main homepage, which looks like this. So essentially, my lovely red boxes somehow got removed from this. But anyways, there is a navigation panel on your left to give you some like important links to get to the Learning Collaborative website, which has like the playbook and things like that, to reach out to us via email, and to get the HSCRC main page. All of that will be available. You will spend the bulk of your time in this top enrollment section, which we will go over each box. But I do want to highlight, let's see if I can actually do that and be fancy. Oh yeah, I can. So since I do want to highlight this EQIP entity up here. So if you are an administrative proxy for more than one entities, you will have a drop down here. So just pay attention, of course, as you're making edits to ensure that you're using or you're on the right EQIP entity, but also if you need access to more, you can be added as an administrative proxy, but this is how you would navigate from one to another. We also have our lovely, like, how many days left are enrollment. So hopefully you guys will be able to see, you know, that deadline and you know, it won't come as a surprise to anything. So we'll sort of hop into the start enrollment process type of thing. So, oh, here are my lovely squares. Okay. So as mentioned, new entities have to be initiated by lead care partner, and hopefully this is a relatively quick process, but do want to highlight, I think, the 5 different steps that they must do. So when they log in, the first thing that they have to do is they put in their own information. So relatively quick: name, last name, first name, last name, email, I think phone, so relatively quick. They also need to select if they're just participating by themselves, or the majority of our entities are multiple care partners or participating with other providers. They need to actually put in what the name of this entity is. And then if they are done or they want to pass on the next steps, they need to put in the contact information for the administrative proxy, and that'll get, basically their hands are done. They can step away, and the administrative proxy can do the final steps. So again, sort of for lead care partners, want to highlight what that looks like. So this is the area that they go in and they actually put in their own information. The important thing here is, are they selecting the right type of entity? Again, most of our entities are multiple care partners, but people can participate individually. So you could select an individual care partner here. And then also want to highlight that please use the save button at the bottom here to ensure that nothing is moved. And hopefully we have a little thing of like, here, care partners, lead care partners must do this. So the next one, as I mentioned, is they need to put in their EQIP entity name. So please select a name here. This is also the page where you will actually put in your NPIs and your list of providers. But again, your lead care partner does not need to do that if they are passing off some of that responsibility to an administrative proxy. So once they fill in this name, they can jump to the next page, which is essentially adding an administrative proxy. Once this is done and saved, the CRISP team gets a notification that, you know, Joe Smith needs access to this EQIP entity, and that's a very quick, probably typically a 1 business day turnaround time, and they get provisioned right away. And as mentioned, that's really all that's needed. So that's the minimum amount that your lead care partner needs to do. At that point, if they, of course, they have access to complete the enrollment, but if at that point, if they're already assigning this responsibility, they are basically done for enrollment, and an administrative proxy can basically pick up where they left off. So an admin proxy would come in and basically go back to this entity information page, and this is sort of the important part of who's actually enrolling. And there really are 2 different options. There's a template that can be downloaded, an Excel sheet, and then quickly uploaded into the system if you have a large list of NPIs, or you can also use this manual button and you can manually enter in each one. So if you have a small group, that might be easier, but probably Excel sheets are going to be a little bit more streamlined. And then once you for our existing entities, if you're looking to just add some new NPIs because you have like a list of 5 or 6 docs that have added, you would just, the difference is you would use this append to existing, which is essentially adding it to your list rather than using this upload or overwrite function. So just paying attention to those, make sure you don't lose your great list that you've already put in prior years. Okay. The next step is once you have your list of MPIs and they are uploaded, you will be able to view the eligibility information based off of that selection. So you will see a list of all 52 episodes down here, and you will be able to see if you are eligible based off of the minimum volume of 11, and you will actually get to see what your actual volume is. And all of these boxes on the right-hand side here are drop downs. By default, everything is going to be no, you're not participating, and no, you're not selecting an intervention. So you would go in and actually select which ones you're going to drop down and say, yes, I am participating. Once you're participating or saying you're participating in an episode, you do need to select at least one intervention. Over here, we do have, I think right up here, a PDF of examples of the interventions if you're unsure what to click, but you also are more than welcome to select yes for more than one of them, but at least one intervention per episode has to be selected. And again, if there are questions about like those numbers seem a little different or not expecting it, just email our inbox. We can give you a little bit more information or try to workshop that together. The next to last step on this is putting in your payment remission recipient. So as a reminder for entities, if they are eligible for an incentive payment, it is a lump sum to one particular payment recipient, and this is where you put that information. Ultimately, it's something that we will then pass along to our CRP partners, who are the ones that eventually cut the check. But this is who's getting paid, and everyone's agreeing that, you know, by participating in this entity, our earnings or savings are going to this one location. And then you have this sort of finalize button here. So you can download all of your submission here, and essentially there's not really a click, I'm done, I can't edit any more step, because this is editable and open until Friday, September 1st. So even if you click that you're done here, you can go in and edit. It's sort of what is in the system at midnight on the 1st is what we are going to use as what the participation is going to be for next year. But I think a lot of people are really interested in just having a nice clean PDF of everything you put in for your own records. So again, everything can go back in and get changed, but come the 1st, this will no longer be available for you guys to click. So sort of your last step. I also want to highlight when you go back to your main page, there is a baseline data button that you can select. Essentially, it's going to show you everything that was already available in that episode selection, but one new element, which is this statewide episode percentile rank. So that's where you'll be able to see, based off of the episodes that are selected, where you fall within your within the state, and thus what tier you would fall into for our shared savings model. So you can kind of see that, and then also the episode, the total payments associated with the episode, because that first page is really just honing on volume and eligibility. This will get you a little bit more information about, okay, well, what is that number? And then finally, did that. I do want to highlight canceling enrollment. So if you are no longer wanting to participate, or you guys are choosing to maybe, let's say, combine an entity that you were previously in 2 smaller entities, but wanting to participate, you know, in together for next year, so you would cancel enrollment for one. You will need to go into the care partner dashboard, which is going to be this button right here, and you have my highlighter. There's a cancel enrollment button right here, which you would click and then have this pop up, which would confirm, yes, you want to cancel. So just to ensure that's not a mistake, once you do that, you would be disenrolled from the program. So can be done within the portal, but again, by default, if that step is not done, no edits are made, you're going to roll over and continue participating in PY3. And finally, just wanted to highlight the dates as mentioned. We'll be pushing out a lot of communication when the time comes, but you know, for your calendar, that Friday, July 7th is when the portal will open. It will close at midnight on the 1st, which is also a Friday. And then essentially all in the fall, we will be doing contracting and vetting through CMS with our final deadline for everything, obviously, as the 31st. We are hoping to push up some of that timeline next year because we did get some feedback within contracting since all of the deadlines were right around our winter holidays, hopefully trying to avoid that and get a little less pressure with people taking vacations around that time. And essentially come January 1st, that's when the performance year 3 starts. Late January is when all of the baseline data would become available within the system, that you guys would be able to drill down and see all of that. And then just as a reminder, we typically look about like 6 to 9 months after the close of the performance year of when incentive payments will be distributed. So that would be in Q3 of calendar year 2025 for next performance year. I see I have some questions in the chat, so let me just see if I can get to these. Will existing providers be reevaluated to meet episode thresholds? So we are using the same baseline period for next performance year as we've done before. So if you are not looking to change your episode, essentially your eligibility stays the same, but this slide, I'm gonna go back, apologies. This slide would reflect the new episodes that would be available, and you can see if any of your existing NPI list, or if your existing NPI list meets eligibility for the volume thresholds associated with that. And I apologize if that is not what you're asking, but I think that was. I did get a question about if these slides will be emailed. I did email them out, but I apologize, I missed someone, so I will be sure to get that to you. And we also, both Jean and, so Medkai and Chris also post these slides after the meeting, but of course we will definitely make that available.
Yeah, so if you go to Medkai/EQIP, or if you go just type EQIP and Medkai into Google, it'll pop up and you can see we actually put the recordings and the slides up for all these meetings, and then we try to record outreach meetings as well. So there's a couple really nice meetings we did last year around dermatology, urology, and a few others up there. So if you have specialties who want to learn more, or doctors who work for you want to learn more, you could go on their website and see those videos as well.
And I actually need to apologize. I totally misspoke. There is a couple steps that an EQIP entity needs to do to verify their details for next performance year. Nate, do you want to correct me about that step? So they won't roll over. I'm not sure if they just need to kind of click through their buttons. But if you could clarify that, that would be super helpful.
Yep. So since this is a formal CRP track with CMS, we do need to make sure that all of the enrollment details are accurate for each performance year. So it is pretty simple, but if you have an existing EQIP entity that was participating in performance year 2, all of your details, the EQIP entity name, your interventions, your episode selections, your care partners, all of that will be pre-populated. But we do ask that you log into the system and go through and verify that those details are correct. If you're not making any modifications, you don't need to change anything, and the same process will apply. Whatever's in the system as of the close of enrollment will apply. But we do ask that you just go in and verify that everything is going over correctly, so that we've got your enrollment for the new performance period explicitly documented. And if there are any changes you need to make, you can just make changes to that pre-populated information.
And Nate, when you mean verified, just basically click through the like next and save steps for each one of these.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, and I will edit my slides before I send them out. So that is all the prepared materials we have. Our next meeting is actually, I believe, in July, so that will be after this enrollment portal opens, which is why we wanted to spend some time here. We also will be pushing out, as mentioned, a playbook once we've just finalized these last couple tweaks on our non-Prometheus episodes. But we really are kind of entering this recruitment phase. So as Jean mentioned, if there are providers that would like some overview, we of course have all these materials for you, but we understand that sometimes just talking to you is the best way. So we are happy to assist you all in any type of meetings that you may have with your physician groups. You know, and I don't want to put Dr. Gruner on the spot. He might even be off the call by now, but he's also been super helpful and also talking about the episode he helped develop. But we're all here basically to help answer questions and make this process hopefully as smooth as possible. We always say the best way to start is that there is no downside to this program. So really hoping that people can participate, but we understand a lot of it is also understanding exactly how the model works and things like that. So I will leave it open to any last minute questions.
Jessica, I just had a quick question about the savings policy. So if say an EQIP entity, you know, doesn't hit their target, comes in under their target for 2 consecutive years, are all of those providers that participated in that EQIP entity not eligible to participate in any of the PY3 episodes?
I'm going to punt that over to Will.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And then how would it be implemented? So if there's like a lag with the PY2 data, how do we know?
So that's an excellent question. You know, we're still trying to figure out how to do it in the most seamless way possible for participants. So we aren't able to assess PY2 savings data yet. So we're probably going to go through the enrollment process for year 3 before we know that. We're going to take that into consideration. We certainly don't want to, you know, pull the rug out from anyone who, you know, wants to participate. You know, so I'm not quite certain how to answer your question on how to operationalize it. I guess if somebody was in the position of, you know, creating savings in 2 consecutive years, we'll reach out and work with those EQIP providers directly.
Thank you.
And Will, is there any possibility of asking CMMI for any flexibility given the delay and seeing if they'll maybe not count year 1?
Yeah, so we're you know, we have to do the assessment, and then we're gonna, you know, figure out a policy for how to do it more seamlessly in the future, so that people know in advance of the year 3 enrollment. And you know, we'll work with providers. So Jean, I'm not going to promise anything or commit CMS to anything, but you know, we'll reach out and work with you, and we'll, you know, not pull the rug out from under anyone. You know, unless it's, you know, been a total mess in the EQIP program and we have no choice. So
Right, and also if they would be disqualified based on whichever one they didn't have savings in, it doesn't totally disqualify them from the program, does it?
Yeah, so we were going to assess the EQIP entity itself, right? So if the EQIP entity did not created savings, you know, across all of its episodes, then they would not be eligible, right? So it would require, you know, large enough savings to offset any successful positive savings in the EQIP episodes.
So does that mean if a provider if they're participating in a shoulder episode right now, they could potentially participate in a different episode in the future, even if the entity they participated in doesn't achieve the savings?
So we're going to look at the entity across all of its episodes, and if the net is negative for 2 consecutive years, they would be prohibited from participating in any EQIP episodes in the 3rd year. Again, you know, the timing is a mess, and so we're going to work with providers to, you know, either do, you know, handle year 1 differently, et cetera. So we're still not quite sure how we're going to handle that. But you know, with that caveat, you know, if you create net negative reconciliation in 2 consecutive years, you'd be prohibited from participating in any episode the 3rd year.
Right, but so obviously though, what would prohibit somebody who was really smart, you know, let's say that the hospital X decided instead of applying as one entity under hospital X, they had each department apply separately. as 10 EQIP entities after that happened. That would be okay then.
So we're gonna look at the MPIs, you know, so if a provider tried to play a shell game, right, where they just dissolve the one entity into 10 different ones with identical MPI composition, you know, that would not be okay, right? So we're going to look at the providers that were part of the overall entity. Again, we're going to try and be flexible here, right? So if, EQIP entity A was unsuccessful and it dissolved into a bunch of different ones, and we had a couple of MPIs that moved with their practice to a different entity, you know, we can be forgiving there. So we're going to try and be flexible, but, Gene just, dissolving one entity into 10 different ones and saying, haha, we escaped, we would not allow that.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like we might want to have more guidance in July at our July meeting on this, just because people are going to be making decisions on enrolling, and we want to make sure they have the right information to enroll correctly.
Yep. My advice to people would be to, enroll as you would normally. And, we are going to try and be as forgiving as possible on particularly the year one savings portion, given that, the timing of making this assessment is a little bit of a mess, and, we can't push back the enrollment window at all. And so, we're not going to rip the rug out from under anyone, based on year one savings results.
Okay.
That's all the questions we had. So yes, our next meeting is in July, and you will be hearing or getting some emails prior to that with all of this timeline that's and all this fun stuff that's happening prior to our next meeting. And always plug, if you need anything, just reach out to our EQIP inbox. We'll get you to the right person. We'll help you out. So I think that's it. Gene, anything else? Last closing words?
All right, everybody, have a great weekend.
Bye.
Thank
all.
you.